The Pokemon manga, while based off the games, is supposed to be an original and superior story to the games. But how is it different? Let's take a look at Pokemon Adventures Red, Blue, Green, Yellow and compare them to their counterpart games to see all the differences between them. In Pokemon Red and Blue, during the intro cutscene of the game, it starts off with a Gengar fighting either Nidorino or Jigglypuff. But in almost every piece of media outside of Pokemon Blue, this fight starts with Nidorino, and Adventures is no exception. However, instead of a Gengar fighting it, Red fights it using his own Poliwhirl and catches it to show his catching abilities to the children of Pallet Town. Typically in the games, trainers are said to have received their first Pokemon from the professor of that region, but in Adventures, all of the main characters have at least one Pokemon with them before obtaining their starter Pokemon. But before Red can get his Pokemon from Oak, he bumps into Team Rocket as they make their debut in the very first chapter, whereas in the games, their debut was all the way in Mount Moon. Here, they're looking for a Pokemon known as the Phantom Pokemon, which turns out to be Mew. Why are they after Mew? Well, their goals are similar to that of world domination like in the games, but we will see more of that as the story goes on. Red also meets the rival with Charmander, who I'm gonna call Green here. Once again, before he can get a start from Professor Oak, whereas in the games, they have both known each other since childhood and go to receive their starter Pokemon together. While the two are independently trying to battle and catch Mew, Green shows much more skill and calmness than Red, the complete opposite of the rival from the games, almost making it so that Red has a personality more similar to the rival in the games, and that Green has a more silent and cool personality similar to the protagonist of the games. It's not exactly the case, but the point is the switch is drastic. Red eventually does get a starter Pokemon from Professor Oak, but Red does so by barging into the lab when Oak is not around and causes a ruckus to allow all of Oak's Pokemon in the lab to escape to Viridian City. And Oak assumes him to be a Pokemon thief, so Red has to go and retrieve all of his Pokemon, with Bulbasaur being the last one. Viridian City's gym is open, not locked up like how it is in the games, but it does seem to be abandoned. Bulbasaur is found there, and as a two-stop a rampaging Machoke from the gym with their synchronicity, Oak deems him worthy of taking a Bulbasaur, and also worthy of receiving a Pokedex, and Red sets off with the goal of becoming the very best. Now, that is similar to the games. Red and Green meet up in Viridian Forest again, where they realize that they're both Pokedex holders, and Red learns that Oak is Green's grandfather. You'd expect a rival fight, as by this point in the game, the two should have had a fight in the lab and Route 22 by now. But instead of a fight, Green is trying to capture a wild Kangaskhan, but Red gets in the way as he notices that Kangaskhan's baby is injured and tends to it instead. Between Red's loss in catching Mew earlier and Green unable to catch Kangaskhan here, a respectful yet dynamic rivalry starts here between the two as they finally formally introduce themselves, whereas in the games, that rivalry is anything but respectful. It is a bit disrespectful in the beginning of the manga as well, but not for too long. You see, I think it's clear by now that the locations of Pokemon are not the exact same in the games, evident by Kangaskhan and of course Mew, who you technically can't even find in the Gen 1 games. So Red actually manages to get himself a Pikachu at Pewter City. When Green notices that Red is having a hard time with his Pikachu, he does mock him, and it looks like the two are finally going to square off. But instead, Green introduces Red to gym battles, and the two have a contest that way. First one to beat Brock wins. Furthermore, Green mentions how having the Boulder Badge raises the attack of one's Pokemon, which this is something that comes directly from the games itself, as certain badges in Gens 1 to 3 actually increase stats within in-game battles. Green ends up beating Brock first with his newly evolved Charmeleon, just like how the rival win first in the games, and Red, because the Pokemon Center is down, has to use Pikachu for this fight. But this fight demonstrates to us that people are equally involved in some fights as much as Pokemon, as Red gets in the way to save Pikachu from Rock Throw, whereas he could have been crushed by the rocks himself. People never get involved in the fight in games, so keep this in mind for the rest of the video. Pikachu also manages to beat Brock's Onix somehow with an Electric type move without using the water sprinklers from the anime, so yeah, that's a hard no-no for the game's type chart. That's never happening. Red continues his journey, and before he can even get to Mount Moon, he meets Misty right outside of there as opposed to meeting her at Celadon Gym, and the two are trying to stop a rampaging Gyarados. Red shows his flirtatious side, which in the game, Red definitely doesn't have that, and the two stop Gyarados, which ends up being Misty's, but later down the story will end up being given to Red. Red finds out from Misty that Gyarados was basically stolen from a group of people, went berserk, and presumably was forced to evolve. And when Red and Misty call Professor Oak about this, they learn of Team Rocket, as Red did not know their names to this point, nor has he put two and two together about them being the same group of people that he saw before. Anywho, Oak says that Team Rocket is doing unethical lab experiments on Pokemon, and that they are probably the ones to steal Gyarados and that they might be at Mount Moon to obtain the Moonstone. And so, Red and Misty head off there, and while they're there, they of course run into Team Rocket. This is on track with the games, but they get into a head-to-head fight with one of the admins, and this is where once again it derails from the games. Team Rocket forcefully evolves a Rhyhorn with the serum into Rhydon, and then the admin uses Rhydon's Horn Drill on Misty Staryu, but the knockback of the attack is so strong that it sends Misty flying into a wall, rendering her unconscious and what seems to be a bit bloodied. Red ends up saving Misty and outsmarting them, while securing the Moonstone, so the two are able to happily run off to Viridian City. But the Team Rocket admin that they fought turns out to be none other than Koga. Yeah, in Red, Blue, and Yellow, Koga is just simply a gym leader, not an evil team admin, but there's a lot more where that came from. Misty in this series is also super rich and fancy when she wants to be, and gives Red the Cascade Badge after giving him a lesson on sexism and some good old training rather than a proper gym battle. Bill also gets fused with the Rattata in the series, whereas in the games, it's typically seen to either be a Clefairy or Nidorino. But to be fair, you can't tell what kind of Pokemon it is in Gen 1. But it's not Rattata based on the sprite icon, so it makes me think that it is Nidorino here as well. Anywho, Bill gets stolen by a Fearow here and Red has to go save him, and it looks like Fearow just impales Poliwhirl. But turns out it was just Poliwhirl's trick to freeze Fearow, but that was never happening in the games. After saving Bill and helping him turn back into a human, Red does aboard the SSN, but not because Bill gave him a ticket, but rather it was because he just saw the ship and thought it was cool, so he snuck aboard. And this isn't your fancy luxury boat cruise either. The SSN here is just a simple cargo ship. Or so everyone thinks. But as Red sneaks aboard the ship, he sees some Pokemon locked up there, and soon after gets kicked off. He then meets the members of the Pokemon fan club, and after learning about a disturbing case of Poké-love? Yeah, okay, definitely not in the games. He finds out that many of the citizens of Vermilion have had their Pokemon stolen. Almost all of them in fact, and since they're no longer seen after some time, he deduces that they must essentially be stolen and trafficked through the SSN, and heads back aboard the ship. And once he gets aboard the ship, he swiftly finds the stolen Pokemon, but is also attacked by none other than Lieutenant Serge, who has been the one aboard the ship, stealing all of the Pokemon. And Serge obliterates Red in this fight and electrocutes him so hard that he's sent flying into the sea. Poliwhirl, though beaten, swims down to save Red, and though it's not explained just yet, the water near Vermilion is said to have a special fire, water, thunder, and leaf stone that works perpetually, not as a one-time use. Deep by the sea floor, the effect of the water storm triggers Poliwhirl's evolution into Poliwrath, causing it to save Red, and beat Serge. So yes, the evolution method is the same as the games, sort of, because Vermilion has some super secret evolutionary stones that doesn't exist anywhere else. No Thunder Badge here though, as Red has no idea that Serge is the Viridian City Gym leader, and Serge himself goes missing. But Red does save all the stolen Pokemon. As the journey continues, Red joins the cycling competition, which he didn't get the bike through a bike voucher from the chairman, but rather, he borrowed a bike straight from him apparently. Anywho, he's competing for 10 Grand prize money. But as he's in this competition, a sleeping Snorlax blocks his way on Route 12, one of the routes between Lavender Town and Viridian City, so this adds up. But this also means that unlike the games, Red got to Void Rock Tunnel, which honestly, good for him. He doesn't have the Pokeflute yet, so he manages to smear his Bulbasaur with honey to wake Snorlax up, and have it chase him to the finish line, letting him win the competition. But Red also manages to catch Snorlax here, and since it's his Pokemon now, he has to feed it, and the 10 Grand went straight into feeding big ol' Snorlax. Red reaches Lavender Town, and the townsfolk are all gloomy and suspicious of everyone. The townsfolk in the game are not like this, as they're all just mourning, but they at least talk. Red pays his respects to an old man as he lost his Doduo, and learns that Green went up Pokemon Tower 2 weeks ago and has not come down since. Different from the supposed unalive Raticate theory that everyone suspects from the in-game rival. Moreover, many people have gone up and have just not come back down, and there's talks about ghosts in the tower as well. So while he is scared, Red goes to investigate. Now when you explore Pokemon Tower in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, you're hit with the ghost without the Silph Scope. So that's what you're probably expecting here, but it's much crazier in the manga. Red goes up and is immediately hit with his decomposing Psyduck that comes out of nowhere. Yeah, the corpses of these unallied Pokemon are being raised to life to fight Red. Red identifies a purple ghost being the one to control these corpses, but unbeknownst to him, Green and Charmeleon are also being controlled by the same fog and start attacking Red. Red eventually stops the purple fog, which he deduces to be Ghastly, and saves Green and Charmeleon. This stops the zombified Pokemon from attacking as well. Green comes back to his senses, but is enraged at someone for putting him under a spell, and ignores all of Red's questions, when the two are attacked by a wave of poison. Charmeleon saves both of them, but the poison does burn Red's clothes a bit, once again emphasizing the potential to harm humans in Pokemon battles in the manga that doesn't exist in any other Pokemon medium. Turns out this was Koga's doing, and he formally introduces himself to the boys as one of Team Rocket's admins, and heads off to fight from a distance. Green figures out his plans within the battle and thwarts them by cutting Koga's Arbok into two. Insane stuff. Show me that happened in the games, huh? And thanks to the boys' efforts, Lavender Town is now free from the ghosts and is once again a bit lively. But before we move on to the next chapter, let's take a look at the differences between the subscribe button before and after you click on it. I think it looks a lot better once you clicked on it, and same thing with the bell icon. But hey, don't just take my word for it. You gotta see by subscribing to my channel to see more videos like this one. In the next chapter, we're introduced to the female protagonist of the story, Blue. Well, that's what I'm calling her anyways. Technically, Blue is exclusive to the manga, as she's not there in the games, but in early concept art for the games, you can see her there, and that's where her design and character inspiration come from. Each of the three trainers from this art even own their respective starters in the manga, except Blue here stole Squirtle from Oak, which, in the games, the third star is always just left there untouched. Anywho, Blue is flirtatious and also super mischievous. But beyond that, she steals things from people just like we mentioned, which is not very protagonist-like, and she does steal Red's badges, so he temporarily goes undercover with Team Rocket, cause Team Rocket also hates Blue and is going after her. Here, we see Mewtwo super early into the story, or rather, Mewtwo still being formed in the test tube, and even Blaine there working closely with Team Rocket to finish creating Mewtwo. But they need the data of Mew with them, which Blue stole. Obviously, from a game perspective, it's incredibly early to see Mewtwo here in any capacity. We technically don't learn anything about Mewtwo until we get to Cinnabar Island. The part of creating Mewtwo after obtaining part of Mew's DNA is the same as in the games, but the one who helped create Mewtwo in the games was Mr. Fuji, while here it's Blaine, which yes, Blaine is technically a part of Team Rocket as well. The numbers are not looking too good for the manga gym leaders. More than that, Mewtwo had already been completed by the time the games are out. It broke out and took refuge in Cerulean Cave for who knows how long. It could be days, weeks, months, or years. We won't know because the journal entries that Mr. Fuji wrote in the games only specify the month and the day, not the year. And there's no indication of when the player character's journey takes place. All we really know is that Mewtwo was out before the player could ever see them, and it looks like Mr. Fuji had retired as a scientist for quite a bit of time, I would say. Back to the manga, Team Rocket goes to attack Blue, but Red saves her when she reveals that they didn't need any saving because she was outsmarting them from the jump. Red and Blue somehow then find Mew and try to protect it from Team Rocket, but Mew stops Team Rocket and saves itself, leading the two heroes to go off on their own for now. There's a bit of a filler chapter where Red and Green's Pokemon get swapped with each other after they accidentally bump into each other, but this triggers Green's Machoke to evolve into Machamp, meaning that in the manga, trading isn't this formal process. It's basically just Pokemon or something under someone else's ownership. That alone should trigger a trade evolution. When Red arrives in Celadon, a bunch of things happen that's not there in the games. For starters, Erica's treated like royalty here. I don't think she actually is, but it's up there where everyone bows down to her and listens to her. She's also an archer fitting the Komodo vibe. Red challenges her to a gym battle, but instead of a battle, she tells Red to prove his worth to battle her, he needs to go and catch a Pokemon. In this case, an Eevee. Red doesn't know what to do, so he calls Bill, and Bill actually shows up to help him. And they find this Eevee who they realize has the ability to evolve and de-evolve into any of the three evolutions and back. Realizing that it's a lab experiment and worried for its health, Red rushes Eevee back to Erica and claims that she and her people sent Red out to find their lab experiment and that they're horrible people. Erica congratulates him and is about to give him the rainbow badge, but Red refuses until he battles her. Throughout this fight, he's protecting Eevee while holding his own, and eventually he wins the fight. To Red's surprise, Erica goes on to heal Eevee, and Red learns that Erica never experimented on this Eevee, but rather it was Team Rocket's experiment, and that Erica and the people of Celadon were just trying to save it. so Red has Erica and all of Celadon's support in stopping Team Rocket, and he adds Eevee to his team while Bill is yelling at him, advising him not to. And then we see the final gym leader, Sabrina, appear, sporting a red R on her chest. So breaking this section down in the games, yeah, Erica is nowhere near as cool in the games. She's just kinda there and known to be hosting a gym full of girls, which may be the case in the manga as well, but we don't see any of that. Team Rocket's hideout in the game corner is completely absent. Heck, their influence within Celadon is completely missing, as every one of the Celadon citizens are against Team Rocket, meaning that part of the game is completely scrapped. Though the game corner itself isn't, because we see Green there in the previous chapter. Bill also takes a more active role here, where in the games, he's pretty much gone after he gives you the ticket to the SSN. And finally, the gift Eevee from Celadon being made into an actual story point rather than a simple gift was a massive change. That too being a part of Team Rocket's experiments and having such unique ability. This is the type of creative freedom that the manga has. The next chapter can also be considered filler, as it's largely just going to be Red going to the Safari Zone and messing things up, but later catching a bunch of Pokemon. But it does once again show the dangers of the Pokemon world in the manga, as Red is in life-threatening danger more times than once. On top of this, the manga shows other animals, not just Pokemon to be present in the story, as Victory Bell is feeding these other animals to the Weepinbell and Bellsprout of its territory. So yeah, that's not there in the games. Nor are these Pidgeybots who apparently help you through the Safari Zone as a guide in the manga. The 500 step limit is also gone, so yeah, the Safari Zone has basically been reworked into a proper tourist attraction as it would be in a more real scenario. Cut back to Viridian City again, and the citizens of the city are wondering where Giovanni is, as the gym is still closed. Meaning that people actually know that he's the gym leader, unlike the games, where it's unclear to everyone who the gym leader really is. We see Red exiting Diglett's cave to reach Pewter City's museum, as he's yet to go there, but as he's exiting, we see none other than Giovanni right next to him. Giovanni is playing the facade of an innocent man who's in need of help to see Red's strength firsthand, as the reports have been coming in that he's repeatedly stopping Team Rocket's plans, even the admins. At first, Giovanni recognizes Red's strength and plans to eliminate him right then and there. However, after seeing Red's kindness in sparing the wild Magmar, who put Pewter's museum to flames, he holds back and deems Red as no threat to the organization. Giovanni hands him an old amber since Red is unable to see any fossils at the museum, and since he claims that him and Red will never see each other again, and Red takes off, only for Giovanni to laugh and unalive those Magmar himself. So yeah, Giovanni in the manga is super competent and actually takes matters into his own hands. Yes, he did meet and fight the player by this point at the Rocket hideout in the game corner, but he never had this cunning and friendly persona. Nor did he do any of the grunt work as he's doing right now. Pewter's museum also never went into flames, and the old amber in the games was given by the people at the back of the museum, not by Giovanni. And finally, yeah, unalive Magmar, that definitely never happens either. But regardless, this is my favorite version of Giovanni by far. In the next chapter, Red is out to get the Surf HM, which isn't at the Safari Zone, but rather Route 19 apparently. He uses his item finder for this and finds the very visible HM for Surf there, but item finders in the game are to locate hidden items, not visible items. Anywho, Red aggravates a Dragonite in the water there, which of course is a Pokemon that you can never find in the wild in the games, and this Dragonite ends up destroying the Surf HM and drowning Red. Luckily, Misty comes in to save the day in her mermaid attire, which again, not there in the games, and actually trades him her Gyarados for his Krabby, which again is also no formal trade with a link cable, just a quick swap between the two. And with this trade, he also now has a Pokemon with Surf. As Red is introducing his Gyarados to his team by Seafoam Islands, we see Team Rocket try to capture Articuno, and Red and his team try to stop it, but they have to navigate through Gyarados' PTSD from being experimented on. Imagine if we have to deal with feelings like that too in the games, eh? Eventually, Red and his team manage to succeed and Articuno flies away successfully, or so we think. Anywho, while Red didn't have to go inside Seafoam Islands or anything, Articuno was in fact there, which lands up with the games. It just got chased outside for this portion of things. As he's on Cinnabar Island, Red finds Blaine being attacked by Team Rocket, but as Team Rocket discover Red, they use Red as a hostage for Blaine to cooperate. Luckily, Red manages to break free and save both him and Blaine, and Red learns that Blaine used to be Team Rocket's scientist, when suddenly they're attacked by Moltres, which Blaine helped Team Rocket capture at the Indigo Plateau while he was still working for them. So Moltres was there in the right location. He's just out now in Cinnabar to fight our heroes, because it's under Team Rocket's control. Blaine notices that Red has an old amber, and he deems that that's the only way they can win the fight, by restoring it to an Aerodactyl. So he fights atop of Red's Gyarados while Blaine gives Red his Rapidash so they can take it and restore the old Amber at his lab, meaning that Blaine is the one in charge of the fossil restoration here. In the games, it's just some random scientist. As Aerodactyl is revived, we see Blaine struggling, and as he's about to fall, he thinks about Mewtwo and how they have to stop it, giving confirmation that Blaine is indeed the father. Or brother, I don't know. But luckily, Red comes in to save the day, and Team Rocket is forced to retreat, with that Team Rocket grunt or sub-leader from earlier being the one to control Moltres here, which is something that I would never expect to see in the games. While Blaine is injured, he presses forward to stop Mewtwo and tells Red how to get home to Pewter Town. Meanwhile, Sabrina, Koga, and Serge all report to Giovanni at Saffron City with the capture of the 3 legendary birds. With Project Mewtwo gone, they use the legendary birds to proceed with their plans. So no Volcano badge here, and though we didn't cover it earlier, he totally skipped the Marsh badge and Soul badge as well. Red also never explored Pokemon Mansion, which is vital to learning about the lore of Mewtwo, but that was given through Blaine as the lore here is definitely different. Team Rocket's goal here was Mewtwo similar to the anime, while the games didn't put too much emphasis on it. But Team Rocket certainly never went this hard over the legendary birds, nor did Team Rocket have a grand scheme like this with all these gym leaders with this crazy fight. But they were indeed the ones controlling Saffron for some time, and the big battle between Team Rocket does happen here, as we're about to see in a second. Blue tries to make her way to Saffron City herself, but even with her flirtation techniques, she's booted out. Green tries to go through as well, but no luck. So yeah, the G I'm thirsty guards actually have a reason to be blocking the way to Saffron right now, aside from the dumb reason of just being thirsty. Blue and Green both try flying over there, leading the two to meet for the first time. And you know, Blue is as flirty as always, but Green ignores it entirely. He tries to fly in, but there's a barrier stopping people from flying into Saffron. And while Blue wants to work together, Green flies off to his grandpa's lab, which is where Red is heading himself. Red heads to Oak's lab to see him, but this Oak turns out to be an imposter, which, while this was never there in the games, Imposter Professor Oak is indeed a card from the trading card game. But yeah, no, it never happened that these guys went back to Pewter Town and had to face a Kadabra led by Sabrina, who pretended to be Professor Oak. This is totally new. On top of that, Sabrina and Team Rocket kidnap the people of Pewter Town, including the professor, and tells Red that in order to save them, he has to go to Saffron City. Sabrina disappears, but their battle leads to the collapse of Oak's lab, and Green arrives and shows Red the state of Saffron. The boys realize Team Rocket is using Saffron as their headquarters, and they prepare for the final battle between the kids and Team Rocket. Red learns that his Eevee has been stolen from the Pokemon storage system, which, imagine if something like that was in the games, and Red and Green go to Saffron to stop Team Rocket. There, the 3 kids learn that Mr. Mime is holding a barrier into Team Rocket's HQ, Silphco. And actually, though Blue doesn't join the boys just yet, all 3 of them support each other in taking on the Mr. Mime and dropping the building's barrier. Once they're in, a trapdoor gets read, which again, Silphco didn't have any of those in the games. More importantly, these traps lead all 3 kids to be separated and have their own fight against the Team Rocket trio. Green against Koga, Red against Serge, and Blue against Sabrina. Each of these fights involves some kind of crazy attacks and methods that you'd never see in the games. For example, Koga uses Grimer to encapsulate and suffocate Green and his Pokemon, and he kinda uses Ekans as a poison blaster on his arm. Koga is also somehow able to use Golbat as a mirror to show Green what's happening in the battle with Red and Serge, and manages to get Golbat to razor wind Green right by his chest and stomach. Luckily, Green had a pendant with the reflective power that was gifted by his grandfather or whatever, so he was safe. But this also gives meaning to the pendant that he always wears in the games, which it was just there for cosmetics before. Also, he uses Pidgeot's beak to stab Koga in the stomach, but I think for the most part, Koga was somehow okay here too. Serge uses his Voltorb Electrode literally like he's in the military and takes out a bazooka to load him up and send Red flying, while using the Magneton on the soldiers as a defensive barrier. We also find out that Serge and presumably the other gym leaders a part of Team Rocket are just doing this for the sake of power, which, I mean, hey, at least they're honest. No gym leader in the games are that honest. Sabrina has Blue in a series of illusions and tricks, which this is something we see often from psychic Pokemon in the Pokemon anime, but not in the games really. Blue is even able to send out a Ditto disguised as a Blastoise right away, all the while using the Silph Scope Ball things to see through her own smokescreen that she laid out for Sabrina. Sabrina doesn't go down that easily, however, as Sabrina herself uses her own psychic powers here and even has Kadabra use Disable on Green. Imagine if you can try that on any of the trainers in the games. And when Sabrina tries to end it all with a Psychic Spoon, Green makes fun of Sabrina's womanhood and shoots out Pokemon from her 2 implanted Pokeballs by her chest. That was never ever making it into the anime or the games, I'll tell you that. This isn't it for the admins though. Though they lose all their initial fights, they bring out their secret weapons, the legendary birds. Koga uses Articuno, Serge uses Zapdos, and Sabrina uses Moltres, which we'll come back to Sabrina in a bit. The reason as to why Team Rocket is able to control the birds like this is because of the gym badges. They together own 4 of the 8 gym badges, and if you look up the badge obedience chart on Bulbapedia or anything, you'll see that in Generation 1, owning 4 gym badges means that Pokemon up to level 50 will obey a trainer, which is the same level that you can fight Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres in the wild in those games. It's super cool that they paid attention to details like this, but that's not the only purpose of the badges that they have in this final Team Rocket fight, as in this universe, there exists the Badge Energy Amplifier, the device that Sabrina is going to use to really make the story different from the games. After Green saves his grandfather from Silphco, of course, and after we see Misty, Brock, and Erica protect Saffron City from the outside. But as that's happening, Blue plants in 7 of the 8 badges into the Badge Energy Amplifier, and you won't believe what happens next. The 3 legendary birds all fuse, becoming a Pokemon that was known as Tephizer. This is the stuff of childhood dreams, sorta, and it definitely isn't there in Pokemon games. Tephizer falls under Sabrina's command, and it takes all 3 kids to come together and use their starter Pokemon in one super heroic shonen way with awesome poses and attacks and a final evolution from Red's side to take down and beat Sabrina, allowing the 3 birds to split apart and separate, while Silphco crumbles without fighting or seeing Giovanni at all. But it seems he was watching from afar the whole time. The good gym leaders save the people and the Pokemon, and the kids save the day, leading the 3 of them to go off on their own with promises to meet again at the Indigo Plateau. Since the kids technically have 7 out of the 8 gym badges now from beating the gym leaders here, you'd expect the Giovanni gym battle to be next, right? Wrong. We go straight to Mewtwo, baby. Starting with Blaine's dream that shows Mewtwo breaking out of the lab and Blaine going after it in real time, while Bill asks Red to go investigate the beast of Viridian City and Viridian Cave, which, when he gets there, there's a force so powerful that all 6 of his Pokemon can't handle it. But luckily, Blaine saves them all. And as we see Mewtwo, Blaine reveals the secret connection between him and Mewtwo, his arm. In the manga to create Mewtwo, they had Mew's DNA, but Blaine also added some of his cells into Mewtwo. But thanks to this, some of Mewtwo's cells ended up in Blaine's arm, making so that the 2 are linked and able to locate and feel each other telepathically. Blaine also refers to them as brothers because of this. In the games, Mewtwo is also 50% human, but we don't know how that 50% human DNA came to be. Most likely it was not from Blaine though. Blaine holds a Master Ball, which is kind of fitting because in the games, you would get the Master Ball after Silphco, and while that wasn't the case here, it did appear immediately after Silphco. And while it's not owned by Red, seeing Mewtwo's devastating power, Red decides to help Blaine catch Mewtwo despite Blaine's warnings. Red utilizes all 6 of his active Pokemon, and eventually through a valiant effort of teamwork, it's not even Red that catches Mewtwo, but rather it's Pikachu. A Pokemon catching a Pokemon. Something that technically may have happened in the anime, but never in the games. And here, Red just gives Mewtwo to Blaine. And with Red's motivational speech, Mewtwo decides to turn a new leaf with Blaine, and they all head home. But Red has other matters to attend to, like getting his 8th badge. Before that, he saves this little girl from a Dratini and teaches her how to catch a Pokemon, replicating the catching tutorial from Viridian City from the games in some way. And this leads to the girl's first ever Pokemon being a Rattata. Red does realize that many strange and strong Pokemon are appearing in Viridian though, and heads off to see the gym leader to see what's up, despite everyone telling him that he's no longer there. Red gives the little girl some words to live by, and she remembers these words for the rest of her life. And as he enters the abandoned gym, he sees the same statue of Giovanni from earlier, still failing to recognize him. But to his surprise, Giovanni emerges from the shadows of the gym and reveals himself to be the same person who gave him the Aerodactyl fossil and the leader of Team Rocket. And while Red is confronting him, He gets suspicious of other trainers being in the gym, which unlike the games, there's no one but him and Red, which Giovanni reveals, but on top of that, Giovanni drops all of his Pokeballs on the ground so he's unarmed. He fights Red with his handicap to prove his ability and strength as a trainer, as by the time Red takes out and uses one of his Pokemon, Giovanni is quick enough to go, grab, and use one of his own Pokemon. This again exemplifies the difference in the manga and the games, as the trainers always have to be at the top of their game and are equally involved in the fight. Giovanni makes a deal with Red that if Red loses, he'll have to join Giovanni in Team Rocket, and if Red wins, Giovanni will basically leave him alone. Red accepts, but only if it's a fair fight, and lays down his conditions to be the same as Giovanni's. In between the battle, Giovanni sends out his own Beedrill to hold the stinger against Red's neck, seeming like it's over for Red. But Red hid his Aerodactyl's Pokeball underneath his foot mid-fight and uses it to save himself. Ironic, because he basically got Aerodactyl from Giovanni. But it's relevant to this video because we would never see a Pokemon be let out like that in the games. Other aspects from this battle include Giovanni having 7 Pokemon at his disposal, those being Cloyster, Beedrill, and then his team of 5 ground types from Red and Blue. Giovanni purposely destroying Red's Pokeballs so they would no longer open and still continuing the fight. Giovanni admitting that most of Kanto was in his control alongside using the Viridian City Gym to hold Team Rocket's experimental Pokemon. Red getting Pikachu to power up its Thunderbolt while it's still in his hand in a Pokeball and letting it out in a way that's charged up so much that it's able to fate Nidoqueen, another ground type Pokemon, and Giovanni all in an instant. I'm kinda underwhelming this battle here with a sentence as it was actually really well done, but it's kinda crazy how the first and last gym battles of Red here had an electric type beating a ground type in some way. And the reason for Red not being electrocuted while Pikachu was in his hand was of course Serge's gloves, which that was Team Rocket's own invention, meaning that Giovanni helped Red win here in more ways than one. Red passes out after this and the little girl from earlier ends up saving Red and healing him? We don't know how yet, but she expresses that Viridian City needs a new gym leader now that the gym got destroyed. And Red tells the little girl that it would be an honor to be the city's gym leader, but only after he's achieved enough. Which of course leads to the Pokémon League. The Pokémon League in the manga is similar to the anime and not like the games. It's a tournament with many competitors, and it seems to happen every few years because the winner of this tournament is the 9th overall winner of the league. And Professor Oak was also said to have won the tournament as a kid, so there's that. Green tells Red that every winner of the league thus far has been from Town. Compare this to the games and it's not so clear there, as it looks like the rival is the first person ever to beat the Elite Four, but Oak has access to Hall of Fame as well, so obviously he's won at some point there before as well. Anywho, all 3 kids make it here and Blue is fighting Dr. O here.
Oh, I wonder who it could be.
Dr. O forces Blue to fight in an aerial battle as he uses all flying type Pokemon. In this battle, attacks are being directed at both trainers and Pokemon, but Blue seems to hold some trauma with flying type Pokemon and doesn't own any herself. However, she uses the Goat Blastoise and uses its cannons to propel itself into the air and fight that way. I really wish this existed in the games. Despite the strategy, using a Spearow with Mirror Move and continuing to induce trauma, Blue falls to her defeat, and Dr. O gives her a lecture on stealing a Squirtle. Professor Oak knows about Blue's past of being kidnapped by a bird Pokemon and how she doesn't have a family anymore. She opens up about wanting to be like Red and Green and Pokedex holders just like them, and that's all that she wanted. When Oak reminds her not to steal and hands her over a Pokedex, accepting her feelings and emotions and accepting her as a trainer from Town. A very touching story, but one that does not exist in the games whatsoever. Also, I forgot to mention a bunch of side characters come to visit and watch these matches. Well, despite Oak's victory, he resigns from the tournament as he basically just wanted to take on Blue's emotions, and so the final battle is between Red and Green. This battle single-handedly shows off all the differences between the games and the manga, as every difference you need from the 2 mediums is displayed right here. The 2 rivals move alongside their Pokemon, they're constantly switching in and out of Pokemon, the 2 demonstrate character growth in the middle of the fight, while in the games, the rival is the exact same character. And one of the craziest things of all, the Elite Four watches their match from the shadows. While Green has the advantage throughout the fight, the battles here are different. Even in the case against Red and Giovanni had more useful Pokemon than Red, but Giovanni was knocked out, leading him to lose the fight. Here in this final fight, though it looks as though Red is running low on Pokemon compared to Green, using a combination of his Pokemon attacks with Venusaur to end it all, he's able to get a Lightning Strike to form to take out Green's Charizard, and in the process, knock out Green as well. leading Red to win the final battle and be declared the new champion of the Pokémon League. And so, all three rivals acknowledge each other and get ready for the awards ceremony, where Mew watches from afar and hurries off as everyone heads back to Pallet Town. But that isn't the end of the story or the comparisons, as we still have Pokémon Yellow to go over. Yes, the Gen 1 Pokemon games are largely the same, and the only real post-game is pretty much finding Mewtwo, which was covered before the Pokemon League, probably for the sake of having a fitting and memorable conclusion. However, we only covered the chapters of Red, Green, and Blue here. We did not cover the chapters of Yellow, which are 4 full volumes by themselves. And these chapters star Yellow, of course, who is none other than the same little girl that Red saved at Viridian City, with just a 2-year time skip. As in this time skip, the Elite Four set up a match to trap and kidnap Red and petrify him with ice, and it's up to Yellow to take Red's Pikachu and use her healing abilities to save the day. She has these abilities as once in every 10 years, someone in Viridian Forest is born with unique powers. The power to understand Pokemon and the power to heal. She can communicate with Pokemon unlike any other, making for a very unique story, unlike Pokemon Yellow, which is basically just the same game, and it's also because she's a unique character in and of itself. This story is actually so unique that there's not much to cover in this particular video, as there's nothing to really compare to the games here. I would basically be narrating an entirely new story, which, if you do want to learn more about the Yellow chapters, you can check out my video here on the Elite Four being evil. But to cover major differences that are relevant to the games, the Elite Four in this world are largely evil, looking to wipe out humanity and create a paradise for Pokemon. Now, they have good intentions for the Pokemon, but yeah, wiping out all of humanity is very extreme from the characters that we know. There are some cool nods to the game, such as Yellow being able to see Pikachu's emotions on the Pokedex, similar to the new feature in Pokemon Yellow. Not that she needed it, of course. Or her pressing the B button on the Pokedex to stop her Pokemon from evolving. But the differences are so drastic. For example, Lance is also a child of Viridian Forest, born with the same powers as Yellow, so they really have a different kind of clash here. Every evil gym leader teams up with one of the protagonists, the same as before, to take on the Elite Four. Blue with Sabrina against Lorelei, Koga and Green against Agatha, Serge and Red after he's saved to take on Bruno, and Blaine, Mewtwo, and Yellow all together to take on Lance. And later on, when Blaine and Mewtwo are down, Giovanni actually joins the fray and battles himself. Heck, even Bill is here for some reason. It's a very interesting part of the manga, with Lance's ultimate goal being to get all the 8 badges to use the badge energy amplifier to summon Lugia. Something I never expected to see in a Generation 1 manga, but it happens and it's pretty amazing. But really, the differences that are relevant and there. You'll have to check out the previous video I mentioned to learn more. And also, you'll have to let me know if you want to see this for Gen 2 Pokémon Adventures Gold and Silver.